I'm happy, excited to spend some time with Jeff Young. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
Not at all. So one of the things that has confused me about the game is this nebulous notion of rotation, putting rotation on the ball, and that's the
Yeah.
thing that I wanted to talk to you about. In particular, I wanted to get a little bit of the technical know-how, and I'm also interested a little bit in your impressions and opinions about sort of where rotation ranks among the other skills that a bowler
For sure.
needs to focus on, especially for someone like me
Yeah.
who is like, there's 15 things I could try to work on, and I have been trying to work on for the past 2 or 3 years, and I feel like I've been treading water because I haven't had a system and a strategy. The closest thing I've had is doing a lot more work on the mental game. That I think I have an idea how to move forward on that stuff, and I've been doing that for a few years. But now getting back to the technical stuff, I want to avoid the feeling like I need to tear it all down and build it all up again, because I've done that too many times and it's not working. So
Mhm.
now I want to understand a little bit more, go deeper into some of these individual topics. And I figured that you were an excellent resource for this kind of thing. And then when I gave you a list of questions and you were like, yeah, we can talk about all this stuff and maybe for a really
Yeah.
long time, then I knew I
Yeah.
absolutely was in the right place.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with some really basic stuff. What does it mean to put rotation on the ball?
Okay, so you're just putting revolutions on the ball. You know, I guess one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to throwing a ball, whether I mean baseball is kind of really caught on to this,
Yeah,
recently.
with spin rate, all that stuff.
Spin
Yeah.
rate. I mean, it's essentially kind of the same idea. You can throw the ball hard, slow, whatever the case may be. You're going to see it probably more prevalent in a hard tour because they can literally just slide the ball down the lane
Right.
with the velocity. Um, but the more revolutions that you can put on the ball will actually aid with pin deflection.
Right.
The best way I can put this for a real life example is something I know we've all seen it before. And you're bowling against somebody, and they don't have to be particularly a hard thrower. They could be an average speed bowler, and they throw the ball and they hang a solid corner pin. All of a sudden, it's like they threw everything but the kitchen sink at it. Pins are bouncing all over the place. Takes the corner pin out. You go and throw the ball. You hang a corner pin. When that person gets the kick on that, or it could be anything. Um, sparing a head pin or just some wild kickback shot that you might get. People always say, man, that guy's so lucky, or you got a horseshoe. That's what really good rotation gets you. The more that you spin you can put on the ball, theoretically the better, stronger deflection you're going to get. If you're sliding a ball, it's going to come in what they call flat. It's going to slide in there. The pins aren't going to quite move as dynamically as they would if you put a rotation on the ball. Now, I guess the offset, maybe leading into probably your next question, would be, how to vary, not necessarily the RPM of the ball, but the track of the ball, and that plays a big role too. And any really good bowler would be able to tell you that that is a very strong variable in making an adjustment. And a lot of the time when you see people that are kind of moving their spot on the lane, they're trying to get a different angle, right?
Yes.
And they're trying to change the path of deflection so that it works in their favor. But you can also do the same thing with rotation and changing the rotation. So I guess, to kind of sum up, your first kind of a point is that it's not necessarily something that you can physically see. Like you're not going to, throw the ball and see the rotation more. You only ever see it on the pin action.
And that's, I think, something that it's a skill that I've not developed yet. That sort of that ability to read the pins, like just like a pitcher can read bats,
Yeah,
and can get a sense for when to, when it's time to throw a changeup, when it's time to try to hump up and throw a little harder pitch. I think that, so I've noticed I get pretty good pin action. I I think.
Mhm.
And so, and some people have told me I have good rotation.
Yeah.
Part of the problem is that I've never really understood what they're seeing. So are they inferring that I have good rotation because they see the pins moving? Are they actually seeing something on the ball, the angle of entry? Are they watching the sort of the beginning of the deflection of the
You know,
pins?
it's possibly it really depends on who it's coming from. I hate
Right.
to say it that way,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Well,
um,
obviously, but so maybe let me ask it a different way. Uh, how do I know when somebody says to me, "Oh, you got good rotation," or "You put good rotation on that ball"? How do I know that they're not just guessing that based on the fact that the pins bounced around a bit?
I feel like depending on the person, 90% of the time they are guessing.
Okay,
You know, they see you bowling well. Oh, it must be they have good rotation on the ball.
right.
Um, I really
Because
feel
that's
like,
yeah, that's not useful to me.
yeah, I feel like that's something like a good rotation on your ball is something you will feel more than the other people will pick up on,
Okay.
strictly because you'll know. You know, it's just one of those things like if you've never put a solid amount of rotation on a ball, it's one of those you don't know what you don't know kind of thing. When you finally do it and you can see and feel the difference. You throw the ball and you're like, oh, I'm not going to get away with that shot, and you do get away with it. Chances are that you didn't get lucky. There's no such thing as getting lucky in bowling, although we use that all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Um, you just have that little extra something that maybe the next guy didn't have that made you carry that, corner pin, or you know what I mean. And having a knowledge of your own game, you'll know shots that you never used to get away with that you get away with now. And it's not just like
yeah.
unlocking some magical thing that like just one day all of a sudden, hey, you're a pretty good bowler, so I'm a corner pin, I'm going to fall for you now. That's not how it works. There's just that little something extra, and it could be so hard to quantify the actual, like we don't have stuff like 10 pin bowling is a great example. I mean, we can learn a lot from 10 pin. I know we kind of butt heads on the two sports quite a bit, but I mean, if you watch the PBA tour, they're always publishing spin rate.
Yeah.
And if you really look at a lot of the really good bowlers, that's the one thing that they kind of all have the same. If they put some house bowler up there and they showed his spin rate, you'd be like, okay, wow, I can see a huge difference between that person and the PBA bowler. And it's the same with 5-pin bowling, to be honest with
Okay.
you. And I guess that like a really good example would be, you having been at Timmins, this past year. Well, I hate to
Yeah.
bring it up because we're supposed to be planning to go this weekend, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So shout out to the Timmins
yeah,
Invitational.
what's up, Al? So if you spend enough time watching all the bowlers, there are a defined group that you can see that you almost expect to kind of on a tight shot, thin shot, they're going to carry it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch someone else and be like, oh, they're not going to carry that, or they might get it once in a while, but the higher percentage, kind of a getaway, with a certain group, and that certain group is throwing better rotation, and that's it's not that they're throwing it harder or they have some magical bowling ball. It's just the technique of putting the revs on the ball. It increases the margin for error. Really, is what it does.
So that I don't know, 12 directions I could go, but
Yeah.
one that immediately comes to mind is I don't know if I notice when I put good rotation on the ball, but I can feel flat. I can
Mhm.
feel, especially I've been the last 6 months or so. I've been bowling with the weighted grip, and so the ball is coming out of the second and third fingers, right?
Mhm.
And I'm doing that because I want to develop
Yep.
the backup. And I can feel when the ball comes off the two fingers too evenly,
Mhm.
then I absolutely see, I don't even have to see the fact that, oh, I just hit the left 3-pin. Even if I scrape the head pin on the way by in the left
Yeah.
pocket, I can see the ball just go straight back. And if the left corner pin goes down, that's amazing to me.
Mhm.
So I think I can feel flat, but I can't feel rotation yet. Is
A
there
really
something I can do that can help me be more aware that I'm putting good rotation on the ball?
so um, I guess one of the little, I guess, sneaky tips I could give you to understand whether you put good rotation on your ball is um, calluses. Are you getting calluses on your finger, and where are you getting them?
All
Yeah.
right.
So I mean, that's obviously the release point. That's where you're putting the flick
Okay.
on, right?
So
That's where
that
that's
so
where
then
all the
yeah.
friction is from you letting the ball go. You can have somebody who doesn't put proper. Yeah. See, there you go. I get
Right in my
mine.
fourth.
I get mine right in right up against my nails.
I used
Uh,
to get that on my fourth actually. I have it a little bit on the pinky actually.
so um, yeah. So I mean,
Interesting.
that's a really good indicator. You can have somebody bowl 10 games and they won't get calluses on their finger.
So
And
all of us who are sitting there with our fingertips in ice water trying to get through Saturday and Sunday, we're the ones putting rotation on the ball.
If you bowl a tournament and you bowl, say, a Friday or a Saturday, and then you come back on Sunday morning and your fingertips are on fire the first 15, 20 minutes, you're putting good rotation on the ball.
Okay. That's awesome. And in particular, this absolutely happened to me at the 400 North last time I was there, when I made it through to the semis. And that was a tournament where I shot 2185 on the first shift and decided to bowl the next two shifts because, hey, I'm here.
There.
I'm here to
You're
bowl.
there. Might as well. Yeah.
And Dexter and Tim just roasted me on the podcast. Like, what the hell is he doing? He's crazy. If I shot 2185 in the first shift and I saw the scores, I would have just said, no, I'm in. I'm going to relax. Maybe I would have bowled Saturday night if the scores Saturday morning had been big. And sure enough, on Sunday, I was really starting to feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so that's a good sign. So I can infer from that I'm putting good rotation on the ball.
You're well on your way. Yeah.
Yay.
And I mean, and that's the thing, like say someone like Dex or whatever, I mean, they're in a different place in their bowling career too, right? Like,
yeah.
They understand their body and their game very well. And then I mean, I've gone into tournaments and played, say, a Friday shift, hoping that I make the playoffs on Sunday, giving myself that extra day.
Yeah.
To recoup. It sounds silly for anyone that's an outsider that doesn't bowl a lot and be like, it's bowling. Like
16 games in a day is a long day, man. If you do the two shifts on Saturday and then you're like, how am I going to bowl tomorrow?
And especially since if you're going out west or you're playing club tour, you're gearing yourself up for a 30 game day on Sunday. So I mean, just getting there, you get a point in your career where getting there is kind of like your goal, and then it doesn't take long, and then you want to be bowling 30 games in that day to make it as far as you can, because just making it's not good enough now.
I am never going to whine about bowling too many games on Sunday. Never, never, never.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really good. I not feeling like I know how to read the pins, not feeling like I see anything necessarily in the ball. I mean, I throw cobras, so they have a nice pattern on them. So I'm hoping I'd be able to see something, but it's just too fast. I didn't know whether I needed to set up a camera to try to watch in slow motion or any of that.
And I would recommend, I know, when in 10 pin or even in baseball, they'll have like a mark on the ball.
Yeah.
They'll record it, and then they can, count the revolutions. I mean, that's probably the only way and we don't even have a baseline, to be honest with you. I mean, I know that I throw a wild amount of rotation on my ball, actually, and I don't know if I'll be able to show you, but to show you the toll that strictly rotation is put on my body. I can't make a fist. I can make a fist on that hand. I can't make a fist.
All right.
That's as far as my fingers go. Okay. And it's tendons and arthritis and everything, and it's strictly rotation. So, but we don't have a baseline to really judge, what type of rotation, I throw compared to you, or, the guys out west throw, or anything like that. It would be really useful if we found a way, because
we need spectrum.
To be honest with you, I feel like rotation is kind of like an elephant in the room. Like,
Yeah.
We know it works, but we don't know and to what extent. And I can sit here and tell you just with my experiences, not just with my own bowling, but knowing some of the other people that I've bowled with, what kind of factor it plays. But somebody might have a completely different experience, but we don't have the math and the science behind that to prove or disprove anybody's thought on that. And I really feel like we could take a step forward in the sport. And
Absolutely true.
and kind of the downfall, I guess, with this whole pandemic thing too is myself and another guy were actually starting actually producing bowling balls, and we were doing a lot of R&D on what different effects, and we measured a lot of bowling balls and try to understand how to change the characteristics. And that was one of the things that we wanted to do, is we wanted to do kind of like similar like what curling has. They have like a sensor that that they can, I guess, download in on a computer and be able to see speed, all that stuff. But we wanted to do the same idea with a test ball for bowling, so you can test rotation. And we've got no desire to do that now. Like I said, I'm struggling to want to stay bowling, never mind trying to put out equipment right now. And I don't see that going anywhere anytime soon anyway. But
well, I mean,
if somebody could do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that somebody somewhere will probably want to take up the mantle on that. We might not have met them yet. And yeah, we need our mad scientist millionaire to step in and try to do some of this stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, Tom England's got enough stuff going on right now, so
Yeah, exactly. Let's. It'll be great to watch. And actually,
he's doing a great job. So we're not going to change his.
Absolutely, no. We're not trying to get no. But actually, that dovetails nicely with one experience, very clear experience I had with rotation that gave me an idea that I need to think more about this. Was actually one of the last times I bowled at Nebs. For those who don't know, my wife Sarah's family lives partly in Oshawa, partly up in Georgian Bay. So Nebs and Bayshore Lanes have kind of become second homes for me.
You're home away from home, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. And so typically I'm there, 2-3 times a year to bowl 5-6 days while we're traveling, passing through town. So last time I was there, this was really at the point after they had installed the black bases. They had really gone back to oiling the lanes really carefully and well and diligently and
consistently.
Yeah, fantastic. I went in there and I was throwing my big aramith balls that I normally have difficulty holding onto. And I just started throwing my normal ball and I'm blowing by corners all over the place. So I'm starting to move my hand up towards the side of the ball. And I literally got to the point where I'm holding the ball like Adam Weber. Like I'm really on the side and flicking it like this. And I shot like a 960 triple because the oil left the ball on target. I was relaxed enough to be able to just throw the same ball over and over again. And with that rotation, every time I hit and I was throwing my hook back then. So I had this massive rotation on the ball. The ball is skidding exactly the way you're describing. So it is doing this on the way to the left pocket. Every time I hit the left pocket, the ball just took a hard left. All the pins stayed 2 feet off the floor. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And I could just throw that as many times as I wanted to for about half an hour until it went away. And even there was a couple in the next pair who were bowling off for their league. And one of them just looked over at me and said, like I threw a shot and I missed. And they said, I didn't know you could miss.
Yeah.
That's how
cool feeling, right?
That was fantastic. And I could. So what was going through my mind at the time was, this is great with these oil conditions. I can put all this rotation on the ball, like extreme rotation, ridiculous stuff, and the ball doesn't move. It's breaking a board or two, not the 15 boards that I would expect to see on dry lane conditions like we have here.
Yeah.
And that was part of what gave me a glimpse into sort of really how powerful it can be. I mean, it almost got to the point where this 3-pound, 12-ounce ball was skipping the corner. There was so much sideways deflection.
Yeah. I
So okay, I could understand the extremes. Now, sort of, is figuring out like where do I need
yeah.
to go in this
Well,
game?
so you actually you kind of touched on what I was kind of mentioning about the adjustments that you can make with strictly rotation. One of the first, I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I'm kind of a mad scientist when it comes to uh, the technical aspect and how I get to where I need to get to. And one of my first go-tos is just exactly what we're talking about, changing how you're holding the ball, because it changes so many things that fall in place afterwards. So I always feel like you need to have a baseline.
Yeah.
Equipment, how you throw the ball, where you stand, everything that is about you as a bowler, you need to have a baseline. It's where you're going to start, whether you're bowling league, you're bowling in a tournament you've never bowled in this bowling center. You need that starting point so you can understand what you need to do to change, the variables to make you successful. And one of the first ones is, like I said, the grip of the ball. So if I'm always starting holding the ball like this, I mean, I don't hold it this high, but just for argument's sake, so you can see it, I'll hold the ball like that. And I guess one of the things that makes me, I guess, a little bit of an oddball. One of the things that makes me a little bit of an oddball compared to a lot of other bowlers is I'm actually a palm bowler. I throw.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
And a majority of bowlers aren't. And so I jam that ball in my palm and I'll put it side to side. If my ball is moving and I'm punching way too many head pins, first adjustment, hold it like that.
Really?
Reduces it gives me more end over end rotation. It reduces the side turn on the ball because I have a hitch in my backswing.
Right.
So if I'm holding it like this and I come back, I'm way more aggressive flicking it. If
right.
I actually
almost throwing it like a curveball underhand.
I actually have a picture. Someone took a video of one of my perfect games, the 10th frame, and put it up on Facebook. And I was able to take the picture of that that actual, I think it was the second ball in the 10th frame, stop it at my delivery, and you can actually see that where I let the ball go, my hand is not behind the ball. It is actually right beside it, and I'm actually flicking upwards. Like I'm flicking like that.
Interesting.
I do know that on days where I have some really crazy good rotation, I can actually feel my hand in front of the ball in delivery.
Right.
So I almost throw it kind of like that a little, but knowing that if I hold it like this and I come through very aggressively, when I turn it like that, the hitch isn't as aggressive in the back either. And it's coming a little bit more off my fingertips, and the rotation goes this way a little bit more as opposed to going that way.
So are you at that point trying to take movement off the ball, or are you trying to
taking movement without taking rotation away? Yeah. So I'm taking side turn off the ball and putting more end over end.
Right.
So if my ball moves, say 10 boards from left to right, it might move 5 now.
Right.
That is my number one, my go-to, because it's the simplest thing to do. Because my brain doesn't understand that I've changed anything after I get to the point where I bring the ball down, because everything else feels normal. But the angle of where my hand is holding the ball makes that change, right? So I do everything else exactly the same in my mind, which changes the outcome when it comes out of my hand. And
go ahead.
But I was just saying that, and I use that philosophy on literally everything. And same with I'm kind of getting off the topic of rotation, but where I put my hands, pre-delivery, changes my pendulum length. Yeah. Which changes where the ball comes out in my slide, changes the angle, where it comes out, changes the track of the ball. Right. So that's all based on timing. So I try and run most of my adjustments strictly on making one small adjustment at the beginning that my brain doesn't understand, that I've made.
It doesn't feel like anything's different.
Well, yeah, because you're a creature of habit, right? So if you can do, something 1,000 times and, your brain, sees it, oh, this is what we do, you make the small changes and doesn't realize something's different. Now you might, every once in a while, you might get that, like you correct it yourself and you shouldn't have.
Right.
But I mean, you're not perfect, right?
That's
so
fine. That's fine. It's part of what keeps us coming back. So,
yeah.
Okay, so two things came to my mind there. One of them is I had always been thinking of rotation as off-axis rotation.
Mhm.
And that was one of the reasons why the term always felt weird to me. Because, so for example, not for example, in general, most people don't throw hard enough to have off-axis rotation as the ball is coming into the pins, right? By the time the ball gets there, it's rolling end over end.
Yeah.
So it always I wondered if that just meant that there's no way for those of us who don't throw that hard to put rotation on the ball, as it were.
Yeah.
So if the it just from a physics point of view, it doesn't seem like once the ball has grabbed, it's just rolling end over end at whatever speed it's going at. Rotation's gone, which always made me wonder, like, does it matter what rotation the ball has going into the pins, or is it at that point all just affecting angle of entry, speed, that kind of thing?
So I guess maybe to kind of give you a snapshot of a perfect example is you're throwing a really good ball, and you're getting good results.
Yep.
You throw one ball that either one feels different or the most common that you see, and I mean, you can watch even your average open play bowler, come out and bowl. A person that chunks it in the lane or throws it really far out and it bounces, not get the same pin action as somebody who rolls the ball straight off the hop with the rotation. Because I mean, we always kind of harp on don't drop the ball, throw the ball out. And then I feel like a lot of people have the mistake where they throw the ball out, and they got to understand that it's going to bounce, slide, skip, and then start rolling. So you're almost just as bad off as if you drop the ball.
Well, that's a random number generator at that point, right? Because you can't control that bounce. You don't know when it's actually going to start rolling.
So in order to kind of, I guess, like I said, like the math, I mean, I'm no mathematician by any means, but just from knowing from personal experience, if I get that ball rolling right out of the hand and see that that tight spin on the ball, even if I've got all other factors look exactly the same, and like it feel like I've rolled the ball in the same spot, it seems to track the same, but it's just like you said before, like it feels a little flat. You're not going to get that same pin action. You know what I mean? So there is something on that back end that is different. It's not just simply the ball rolling in, the same, revolutions and speed and everything, whether you, crank it or, whatever you change, how you release it in the beginning. There's definitely something got to be different down the back end to make that, that feel. Otherwise that would, I mean, I can go back to, one instance in particular where I was bowling in a Masters tournament, and I was at Hopedale Lanes, quite a few years ago now, 2009 actually. That's a long time ago. And I started on the first 6 or 7 in a row, and I threw a shot in whatever the 7th or 8th frame, looked exactly the same coming out of my hands, like anybody who was watching, because at that point people are starting to watch, if you're on that many in a row from the beginning. And the second it hit the arrows, I knew I need to get lucky on this ball. And it was a solid right corner pin, and made the spare and banged out. And I had so many people come up to me and tell me, you were robbed in that one shot. And I'll admit it when, I flat out told them, I knew from this time it was out of my hand, I needed to get lucky. Just something was different. And it was, I didn't throw the rotation on the ball. It's strictly all it was.
Okay. So this is the next big mystery for me, because, so can you remember, maybe you can't, can you remember or even infer what must have happened in your hand, in your fingers, to cause that the difference in rotation that was enough that you saw it 15 feet out of your hand?
It was the feel of knowing that I didn't get absolute fingertips on the ball.
Okay,
So when I let the ball go, it probably came out in this area,
on the
not
knuckles, yeah,
not right on the tips.
okay.
So anyone who was watching, there's no, I mean, you could even take like a slow speed camera and set it up. You probably wouldn't have seen any difference on the ball at all. But it was that feel of me knowing I didn't get enough finger on the ball that, despite it looking good, and like I said, like halfway down the lane, I wouldn't say I knew it wasn't a strike.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping it was a strike.
Right.
As previous shots were like, oh, that's a strike out of the hand. Oh, right out of the hand, that's a strike. It was like, please be a strike, because I knew that was the one variable missing, and in my mind, it was the most important. Well, I guess not the most important. Location is probably the most important, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, but when you're throwing 12 shots like that, location's not a problem. You got that down.
And like I said, it just like, you don't know for sure that it's not a strike, but you're definitely begging on a shot that everyone else in the bowling center was like, oh, that's a strike. All the other ones were strikes, but you knew it wasn't. And that's all it was just a feel. Now, it's funny because where you were asking about, going back and trying to remember, I thought you were going to ask me something, but and you went a different direction. But
okay, answer the question you thought I was going to ask you.
So I was going to say, like, I'm just trying to think back at a time where if I could remember where I felt that change in my game.
That would be nice.
And I don't.
Okay.
Simple as that, and it just, I guess maybe it's something that's crept up over time. And I will tell you that, like, I definitely noticed physically that it was happening at a certain point, because I started getting like trigger finger. When I was still bowling in Hamilton, I bowled Provincial Open the one year where I literally would throw the ball and literally have to peel my finger back straight when I was done, because it would stop like that. And I mean, I knew what the cause was. It was, a lot of bowling, and my body was saying, hey, you're kind of putting us through a little bit of stress here. You want to take it easy for a bit. And, but I mean, I can't really recollect any time where it's just like, oh, okay, I got it now. Like, this is how I throw. I throw different than I did, 2 years ago or 6 months ago. It literally was something that crept up. Yeah.
Okay, so that brings me to really the other big question that I want to get to, which is, okay, so what should I be trying to do? So, like I said, and this is going to be funny, but apparently there's just the right amount of green that it sort of blends into the green screen behind me. But
yeah, it does. Yeah.
But I thought that would be funny to watch. When I pulled this out earlier today, I'm like, oh shit, this isn't going to work. Like, nah, you know what? This is going to be funny. So we'll go.
Just fine. Yeah.
All right. So, like I said, I've been working on the weighted grip. Tom Patterson suggested this to me, and so it's from a baseline. I have the whole sort of. It's hard to show all of it.
Yeah. Right.
Thumbs at a 90-degree angle.
Yep.
Fingers just get wherever I am.
Mm-hmm.
Splay 2 and 3 so that I get the weighted grip. And then, I'm sort of trying to get that feeling that it's more up in the fingers. So, okay, here's where I am. When I release the ball, what do you think I should be feeling? What do you think I should be trying? Because I'll tell you what I have noticed is that because I'm trying to get used to throwing a backup ball, I notice myself doing this. And that's where the calluses are coming from, right? So I notice myself doing this. And I honestly don't know whether that's good or bad.
Yeah.
And I have also tried to experiment with just doing this.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know whether I am like over exaggerating something that I really can't turn into a habit and it's a distraction, or if that's what I should be trying to do to build the habit so that when I do it in a relaxed way, it's more subtle, but it's there. So what do you recommend?
So it's a little tougher for me because I throw a hook. And
I'll be able
like
to turn around, because I used to throw a
Sure.
hook too, and it was exactly
So
the same thing in the opposite direction.
so what I would say to a person, it's going to sound absolutely silly, but I really
Please,
feel
I love silly.
I feel like it would. I mean, it's exaggerated, but I think it's necessary for you to really understand.
Yeah.
Throw the ball, and the second on release, one-handed clap.
Okay.
Like you want to be bringing your fingers,
Okay.
flicking your fingers up enough that you actually are kind of like clapping.
Right.
Because like, and it's, I don't think it's wrong, but when we're teaching youth bowlers or a newer bowler coming up, the emphasis on look like a bowling trophy. I don't know how many times I've said that.
Yeah.
Like you want to look like a bowling trophy. Some of my most favorite bowlers to watch look like a bowling trophy.
Mm-hmm.
But the emphasis is on them looking like that,
Right.
fingers out, right? Because that's what a bowling trophy. But that
ends up flat.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily like, yeah, you're teaching good, like proper form and technique, but you're missing that little extra on it. And it sounds silly to kind of say, yeah, do one-handed clap every time you throw a ball, but you'll feel it. You'll, like, I guarantee you, when you let that ball go, you will feel, by you trying to do that, it'll feel different coming out of the hand. Because I mean, for argument's sake, you're probably going to be throwing the ball all over the place because you're concentrating on that one variable.
Oh yeah, I'm not worried about
necessarily hitting your spot or whatever. But if you throw that ball and you can, like, hear that,
yeah,
you know what I mean. There's no way you can put more finger on the ball, because
right.
I mean, you can't put your fingers through your hand, right? So you know what I mean, like,
only at the quantum level, but we're not going there. Right.
So like you're exaggerating that point so much that when, like you said, when you go into a relaxed atmosphere where you're bowling in league or a tournament or whatever, I mean maybe you are, I don't know, but you're not really trying to one-handed clap. But that motion of understanding that that's how it feels, you'll know the difference between when it happens and when it doesn't, because you've exaggerated it for a period of time that you understand it.
And I think what I really like about that idea is it feels very different from what I was trying to do, where now my wrist is getting involved, and I'm risking trying to put movement on the ball by turning the wrist instead of putting movement on the ball by changing how the ball comes out of my fingers.
Yeah.
And I, especially, and that's one of the reasons why I tried at least twice to switch to a backup so that I could reduce the effect. When I threw my hook and it was on, and I had just that, 3-4 boards of movement. Oh yeah, I would get all the time. I would get those strikes that are high in the right pocket, where the 3 pins fall down and the necks take out the corners, and I would get those all the time, even without the black bases. And that's when I knew that things were really feeling good. I didn't know at the time. I wasn't making the connection to rotation at the time. But that was when I felt like, okay, like I'm gonna carry the corner in both pockets now. I'm unstoppable. And and I've not yet been able to have that feeling throwing the backup. And I wonder if trying to do the one-hand clap rather than trying to do this, and you can see the wrist is turning.
Yeah.
I sort of liken it when I started throwing the backup. I sort of I started to feel a little bit like somewhat similar style to Mike Herbert. The way his angle, he has a more outside angle than I do, but where you can see that when he seems to be going for the left-hand pocket to get the backup to just come right in.
Yeah.
And when he does, like, I don't remember the last time I saw him leave up a left corner when he hits the left pocket. He doesn't get the blow through because the rotation is there.
If you ever watch Mike specifically and see him from a side, like the side angle, like one of the, I guess the kind of like the snapshots in my mind is how far he usually can throw it out. I mean, he's very good at being able to adjust between laying the ball down or throwing it way out there. But if you watch the side profile and how he releases that ball, there is a snap there. You can see it.
Oh yeah.
10 lanes down looking, you can see it clear as day.
I always thought it was the follow through, right? Because he has the really wild, like he just lets.
He's got long arms too. That helps too.
Yeah, and I always thought that that was a follow through thing, and I'm starting to understand now that that's a follow through thing and a fingers thing. Courtney Lucas out in Newfoundland, she has that. She'll finish literally like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I always thought that was purely a follow through thing, and I'm getting the idea now that there's
Yeah, I
not
feel
equal
like
parts, but both. It's both a
finishing,
rotation thing and a follow through.
yeah, I think finishing like this is one thing, but I mean, you can still get that same
Right.
effect by doing that without being that
No,
exaggerated.
and that's the thing. I looked at that and I thought I could never do that, but
Yeah.
I really do like the idea of finishing high,
Mhm.
and I think now it will be easier to. The one hand clap trick, I think, is going to be a
Yeah, I mean, give it a try. Like I said, like this is the frustrating and then also fun thing about bowling is that it's what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you or work for
hey, I'm a trick collector. That's
yeah.
I'm a trick collector. It's the way I learn. I like you. I like to have that sort of long-term incremental change approach to learning. I don't want to throw it all away and do a page one rewrite. And every little trick that I'm happy to try them all, and I'm happy for half of them to fail. That doesn't bother me at all.
It's all a matter of putting more tools in your tool bag, right?
Absolutely.
And I one thing that I do say, and if there's a defined detriment to my game and how I treat how I work things is, you still have to be careful because there is some time where you're looking for a fancy tool when a hammer will work. You know what I mean? And sometimes there's too many tools to sort through, and you can simplify it, but it is very useful.
I'm so absurdly guilty of that. You have no idea. And because I'm a trick collector and because that's the way I like to work, that's one of the things that Tom's been helping me with this past.
Honestly, I don't think you could find a better person.
Oh, you have no idea how amazing it was for me that Tom Patterson offered to help me. I did not go out and seek him. It just was, we ended up talking because I was helping him out a little bit with the book. And then he's like, hey, let's talk about your bowling. And
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely thrilled to do it. And I think that he's really been helping me get out of my head because when I struggle, I end up going back to, I need to make 14 little miniature mechanical adjustments and everything will be fine. And there's a point at which I just have to say, look, this is how I throw the ball. I mean, the one-handed clap thing is going to help me. If it's going to help me feel like I can put rotation on the ball without turning my wrist, that's kind of the thing that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
What will be important to me is I will have more confidence that I'm already putting rotation on the ball, the calluses, the feeling of it off the fingertips, the one-handed clap, all that stuff. Like I believe that stuff in a way that I didn't believe it 90 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to also lead to some basic confidence that's going to help me.
Your headspace and where you're at is so much part of the game that never gets talked about. And I mean, if you have a person who kind of has the same schedule every day, I mean, it's the same in pretty much any sport, and life is a certain thing, and you're comfortable with where you are and everything's great, your bowling will reflect that. But you have a sudden change, even if it's not a bad change, it could be a change of a job, or you just moved, or just that one small thing that kind of takes you out of your comfort zone and what you're always used to. I mean, that could be a big time effect to your game. And there's a few of us that joke around about like people having kids. Oh, your bowling career is done, right?
Right.
But the reason is because something has changed so drastically in your life that you're not thinking about it on the lane, but it definitely affects you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So I mean, that is a variable too that doesn't really get discussed a whole lot, but it makes a difference.
It absolutely does. And I want to talk to you off air a little bit about something that just the coincidence in there, the topic that's absolutely hilarious, but that would then trigger like another 4-hour discussion. And I don't think I'm ready for that today, but I might be ready for that later on. So I'm just looking down my list here. I think we've pretty much talked about all the stuff that I cared about. So that leads me to maybe the most important question, which is, what should I have asked you that I didn't? What should we have talked about that we didn't?
Well, that's the thing, because if you give me enough time to really think about it, you know, there were a couple of things that weren't kind of on your list, but we've already touched on them. So I mean, that's great. In terms of the topic at hand,
let's start there, because I know the rest, as I said,
nothing very glaring. There's nothing very glaring that I don't think hasn't really been discussed.
Okay.
I maybe the one would be also understanding too the different type of bowling ball,
right,
and how it affects the rotation, because something grabbier like a soft roll is, I mean, that's going to affect, as opposed to throwing an aramith, you know what I mean, where you're literally throwing a jawbreaker down the
right. So let's talk about that. So I have my little Cobra here.
Yep.
And this is a relatively young one. This is maybe only about 2 years old. When I grew up, I threw scorpions. So when I started throwing Cobras, it felt very familiar.
Yep.
And my big thing, especially when I was throwing the hook, was the ball's moving too much. I want to be able to throw the ball with more confidence and not worry that it's going to go. Vroom. So that's when I graduated to Cobras. And then this past year, I started throwing the 5-inch 3 and 11 and a quarter aramiths. And I love those balls.
Yeah.
And I'm inferring, so I'm going to make a guess, and I want you to tell me if I'm, where am I on a scale of nailed it to nuts?
Okay.
For what I want to do right now, throwing the harder ball is going to be a lot easier for me, is going to be better for me, because I'm never going to feel like I put so much rotation on the ball that I screwed up the shot, because the aramith's going to hold the line. Even the Cobras, relatively speaking, are going to throw the line, hold the line. Maybe I want a heavier one, but tiny hands. And I think that probably, at least for the next little while I'm focusing on rotation and trying to really use some of the tricks that you've shared with me today, that throwing the aramiths is probably going to be my best bet. I actually also have I have another pair of aramiths and a pair of neons on the way. All hard stuff, 85 and up.
Yep.
So where am I? Nailed it, nuts. Where am I?
So if I would recommend, I guess, a baseline, there's the number one way to go is start with whatever you're most comfortable with.
Right.
So if you really feel comfortable throwing an aramith, that's definitely where you got to start, regardless of whether it's hard or soft. Your comfort and confidence is number one, because if you're throwing a ball with no confidence, the pins know. They do. Know. So you're definitely on point for that. As far as like other options, this is what I would propose to somebody who really wants to kind of understand rotation and what bowling balls do for yourself in your game, is pick your baseline. And for me, I throw they've got to be, oh my God, they're 25 years old now. The old Starline glow balls, but they're a personalized glow ball. They only made them for 1 year, and this style anyway. And that's what I'm most comfortable with. And I know we kind of got in a discussion about this on Facebook just recently too, but it is very important, if not for the bowler themselves, but who a bowler might buy the bowling ball from, is to weigh the ball, understand the size of the ball, and figure out the hardness of the ball, because that is definitely something that we don't necessarily talk about, that it plays a huge role in what effect it has from release to pins and then deflection afterwards. And what I would recommend is, if you've got your baseline and it's a 5-inch 312, whatever it is, I would say, if you're able to, same ball, same brand of ball, get a 4.7/8 312.
I can't get a 312. 310
Okay.
is on the way. 478
Okay.
310 is on the
Then I
way.
would say 5-inch 310. If you can play with what you're
Right.
comfortable with as a bowling ball, but change the settings of the ball a
Yeah.
little bit, then you can understand what those changes do,
Yes.
right? And then you go, okay, if I throw 5-inch 312, I'm probably not using a good. I should say 478 310 because that'd be
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
common. So we'll say 478 310. Then say you throw an aramith. Okay, I want to take a soft roll,
Mm.
478 310. Let's see what the difference is. And the important part is when you're starting this trial run on the ball and what the rotation is doing, you need to do it the same day, the same center,
Yeah. Yeah.
same
Yeah.
practice session, because
Yeah.
you can go the
Humidity, all
next
that
day
shit.
and you're
Yeah.
completely different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I really don't think it's, the most efficient play to, like, okay, I'm gonna bowl a game with this ball and see what it does. Cause I don't think that that's the optimal way of doing things. Set up a pair of lanes or one lane or whatever. And I don't care if you throw 200 balls,
Yeah.
Throw 10 with your baseline, 10 with your change, then 10 the baseline, 10 with the change, and see what it does differently. And this is where the camera would really kind of really work well, because you could physically slow down the recording.
Yeah.
And see, oh look, I hit that on the same angle in the same spot. I hung a corner pin here, I carried the corner pin there.
Right.
How did I leave the corner pin up? Because that's another thing a lot of people don't talk about is, did it blow up over? Did the ball skip in front? We don't know, right? And understanding that, and you can say, oh, okay, well, my ball was skipping in front. I made this change, then the ball went right into the path. Yeah. So now I know that if I'm bowling in a tournament, my ball's skipping in front, I know what change I need to make.
Yeah.
I say, oh, this will correct that action, and I can go from there, right? But I just say most people, like, and that's the thing, like, having been a bowling proprietor, you have a lot of conversations about bowling. And I have a lot of people that come up to me and say, hey, I need you to help me. I'm missing the head pin. I can't hit the head pin. And it's like, okay, well, what side are you missing on? Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't know. Well, how can I fix what you're doing wrong if I don't you don't even understand what's right. going on? Yeah. If you're missing left, that's something completely different than if you're missing right. If you're missing both, I might throw in something completely different. But if I know that you're always missing left, well, I'm going to find a way to get you the ball to go more right. If you're missing right, I'm going to find a way to make the ball go more left, right? And I feel like that's kind of an area. I mean, there are a lot of areas that we kind of lag in when it comes to understanding our own game. And you know what? To be honest with you, that's what makes the good bowler a good bowler. And that's what, is the difference between a 220 and a 240 and a 240 to 260 and 260 to 280 average bowlers, is they understand at different levels what's going on. Yes. And understand faster too,
And I think that's what I'm missing. That's one of the things that I'm missing. And one of the reasons why I felt kind of trapped in this chaos that I've been in for probably the last 3 or 4 years, where I try to make a change. I go through a period, and I'm going through it now, of just disastrous results. And then I sort of get used to it again. And I might be able to go from 225 to 230. But it seemed like I couldn't really break through. And I think part of it is that I think I've done a good job at improving the things that I understood, but I've been held back by the stuff that I don't understand. And this rotation thing had been one of those things. Sure. And so now I'm coming at it almost inside out compared to what you were just talking about, where rather than trying to make small adjustments, it's like I'm trying to learn. It's like when you've been self-taught and then you finally go take a course.
Yeah, for sure.
And now that I have this one-hand clap thing as a way of sort of building the habit of putting fingers on the ball without turning the wrist, I can do that for a while, get used to it. Something will change. And then then I know what to do. I know what to do in terms of changing the angle of entry into the pocket to affect the path of the ball.
Yeah.
I was always stuck in the feeling that I need to throw the ball straighter because I can't figure out how to put consistent movement on the ball. And I wonder whether the problem has been that I've been putting good rotation on the ball, but not consistent rotation on the ball.
Yep.
If I can now, and right, if the rotation's good and inconsistent, then that's the same as throwing fastballs and you have no idea where it's going. That's Randy Johnson before 1993.
Yep.
And when he finally figured out where his landing foot needed to go, he became Randy Johnson.
Yep.
And I think that's where I am with this. And I don't know where I am. I don't know. Maybe when I figure this out, a lot of the other stuff, then, speed is going to be easier to control in my approach. And that means my balance is going to get better and I'm going to be more precise and a whole bunch of things will happen. So that's my hope. No guarantee. And I'm not holding you responsible.
That's good.
But you do know that I'll be back. So, okay. So yeah, I feel really good.
Kind of where you're going with this, understanding about the consistency. I've said this a few times. I haven't told too many people, but if I'm really in depth talking to somebody, I used to bowl league, and not at my own house, but I bowl at league, and I would probably stay up to 2 hours afterwards, and all we would do is talk about bowling and technical things. And I've always said that if I could chart a path for a bowler to progress, maybe not the fastest, but the end result be the best, I would start, and we kind of do, as soon as a kid starts with one hand, just getting used to throwing motion, right?
Yeah.
Throwing motion. Fraser Hamley used to say, you let the ball go and it's like you're shaking a hand.
Right.
And going from there. And once they kind of understand the technique of the release and the arm swing and how it's supposed to feel, teaching the backup, because you can only twist your hands so far.
Yep.
So it's easier to control the rotation of the ball and the path of the ball, and start with something maybe that's not necessarily hard to hold on to, because I can't throw air mitts, and the reason why is just they're too glossy. They don't stay in my hand, right? So, maybe not something quite that drastic, but same idea, something that won't move a whole lot, so they get used to throwing the rotation on the ball. And then, my perfect scenario is, once they understand the rotation, you flip them the other way. Because I feel, now I don't have science behind this, but I just feel like throwing a hook is a higher strike percentage shot. And the only downfall, in most places, they're definitely going to be contrary, thoughts or places where it might work. But I just feel that the rotation of the ball, being able to chart the path for deflection, is something that's a little truer. It's a little, you're able to put a little more on it, to get that RPM on the ball. And the underlying problem that, the majority of people that throw hooks are, is they just can't control them.
Right. That was why I switched. I like your idea of throw the backup ball in order to build the consistency. And now it's like, okay, now you can throw the hook.
Yeah. I say that as someone who throws a hook over, majority of people throwing a backup. Most people do. And I used to exclusively as well. Probably into my mid-20s, I threw only a backup. And then I made the switch because I just felt like the rotation, it can be a little bit tighter. I definitely get a better deflection on it. And the only major issue is being able to control it. Once I was able to do that, it's kind of off and going. And, that's not to say too that, I might get a bowler that I kind of bring up that way and they throw back up and, hey, I don't want to, no, this is good enough for me. And they have success, then leave them there.
I don't have to switch to throwing the hook, but if I know that I can throw both, why wouldn't I want that? And that's what's coming to my mind now is, so here's my ideal scenario for me. Try the one hand clapping thing, get used to that I really can feel the difference when the ball is coming out of my hand. That leads to some confidence, which leads to relaxation, body slows down, body position's more consistent, release is more consistent, balance is better. And that's got to make it easier to put lots of rotation and control the movement.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get to the point where that becomes easy, then try throwing the hook and seeing whether by chance I have the same level of control with the movement on the hook that I have with the backup. And then, yeah, I'm happy to throw the hook from the far left side of the lane into the left pocket, throw the backup from the far right side of the lane into the right pocket, throw the baby hook right up the middle, throw the little backup right up the middle. And now I've got every angle covered. I'm good.
Well, another thing too, not on the topic of rotation, but just in terms of bowling, and your ability to adopt, a big exercise that I used to, commonly do, probably until maybe it was around 27 or 28, I would carry a notebook with me.
Mm-hmm. And I have one.
And I would, if I would bowl, back when I was that age, we would probably bowl, I don't know, like seven or eight Masters tournaments or whatever it was across Ontario, Southern Ontario. And you would go to a lot of different centers that, one, you didn't really ever, frequent, or you didn't bowl enough to really, get a comfort level or remember, because there's so many bowling centers that we had as options. You might bowl in a center on Masters Tour maybe every 3 years sometimes.
Yeah.
So you can't really expect to remember exactly everything that you did. So what I would do is I would write, in my my entry or my journal or whatever you want to call it, I would write, what kind of ball I was throwing, how I felt it was working, my score. And, most people stop there. Mm-hmm. But a little extra to go, a little extra mile to take this. Find out, I would always go to every, majority of bowling centers have like the, league recaps in their leagues. I would try and find like the pro league. Mm-hmm. I would look and I would see, okay, who are the top bowlers in this house? And then I would think, if I knew them well enough, what kind of ball did they throw? Mm. And I would go and I would look. Yeah. And I would look at, say if I finished 35th in the tournament, well, I'm going to go look and see who the top 5 are. Mm-hmm. What kind of ball do they throw? So now if I'm coming into a tournament at the same center, 6 months later or whatever the case may be, it's not going to become my baseline. But if I'm doing practice sessions, and I firmly believe in practice sessions especially before a tournament, to not mark score.
Right.
Just throw balls, get comfortable, get a really good confidence about yourself, because you could either, crash and burn because you bowled good, or crash and burn because you bowled bad in a practice session beforehand and had scores to show. I would practice my baseline, and then I would touch on how these other people threw the ball that scored really well in that place last time I was there. Just in case what I'm doing isn't working,
then you know what to go to.
I know where to start. What I'm doing is I'm reducing the time it's going to take me to adjust to be successful. Because if this guy over here is throwing a certain speed from a certain angle, and I know it, and what I'm doing is not working well for me, mm-hmm. He doesn't have some sort of magical potion that is making what he's doing work, as opposed to me doing what he's doing and making it work. You know what I mean?
Indeed. Yeah. You're finding the people who happen to be scoring well and saying, well, there's got to be something in what they're doing. Let's see if I can extract one or two things in what they're doing.
And your league recap sheets are really useful too, because you could do a deep dive in 15-minute practice before the tournament even starts, to understand, a lot of times they stack papers. We used to do that too, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Put it on top. Next week, put it on top. You can do that. You can also be able to look and see, okay, has this person been consistent through the whole year? Okay, that ball's consistently working. Right. Is the ball working really, really well in the last month? Okay. Is this person falling off and everyone else is catching it, throwing a harder ball? Okay, because maybe they've changed some variables.
Right.
A lot of the times, a bowling center, when they have a tournament, they used to anyway, bowling tournament coming into a bowling center, they're going to try and make the scoring conditions as best they're going to change things.
Yeah.
And if it's a tougher scoring house, I mean, they're going to work on some stuff to try to improve scoring. So you're really going to notice probably leading up to the tournament, oh, things are changing. Why are they changing? Well, there's the chance that the bowlers just are having a good day, or maybe the conditions are more, in favor of someone throwing a different type of ball. And I can't even explain how useful that was for me like I said, most people will keep a journal and say, yeah, hey, this is what I did. It worked. This is what I did. It did not work.
Yep.
But then they don't stop to understand, okay, somebody here won the tournament. Someone is successful today. Because, you can have 130 people in a bowling tournament. One of them is going to win. Yep. So that one person's going to find that tournament to be a success. What did they do differently to make that tournament a success? If you have a strong mind and a strong understanding of your own game, you should be able to, if you're at a certain level, adopt your game to fit theirs a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to play their game and beat them at it, but you're giving yourself a chance. And the more that you throw on that, like I said, you kind of you brush up on that before you bowl the tournament and you're kind of getting going. The comfort level and your confidence grows in throwing that way too. And that's, like I said before, the more tools in the tool bag. So if I'm going into a bowling center and I'm throwing I throw a fairly hard ball and I'm not bowling well, but I know that it, is scores better for someone who throws the ball slower. Mm-hmm. My first adjustment is not going to be throwing it harder. I'll tell you that.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm going to say, okay, well, let's see what happens. I'm going to take a little bit off of it. Or, like I watch somebody what line they throw. Oh, okay. Coming in on that side seems to work if they throw a similar ball to me. And the benefit of someone who like you're throwing a backup, you can have more people to kind of baseline yourselves too. Yes. Because you'd be like, oh, more people throw a hook. And, I find myself personally, like I throw a ton of crank on the ball with a hook rotation. I'm kind of strapped for who I can find that, I can, get myself a line on and take a look. But fortunately, I can still understand maybe what they're doing and what they're doing differently to be successful. And that's the thing, like if you're bowling bad in a tournament and things aren't working out, then there are other ways to walk out of the building feeling like a success, because you might not be a success for today, but you're setting yourself up for success tomorrow. And
I think that's something that I'm really getting from today is that maybe what's missing for me isn't a particular mechanical adjustment. That maybe what's missing for me is there are some gaps in my knowledge because, I had some time off, like 12 years off in my 20s and early 30s, where I wasn't having those late night bar conversations. I didn't get to learn all that stuff.
Yeah, it's right. A tough time.
And so what that meant is that there was a bunch of stuff that I figured out as a kid where I didn't have those conversations in my 20s and 30s at the time when probably that was the best chance for me to learn a lot of that stuff. And I'm catching up now. And I think that filling in the gap, like I said, it's like when the self-taught person, takes a course for the first time and 80% of it is stuff they've heard before and 10% of it goes against everything they ever discovered. But that last 10% is the stuff they were missing. And that makes all the difference. And I think that's where I'm going to end up here.
And the fortunate thing about the bowling community is that, regardless of, where you are in the country, especially nowadays, because you can do, video calls and stuff like that, you'll find that you have a large majority of very successful bowlers that aren't going to hesitate to give you any time. Like they'll give you the time you need to, pick your brain. And I might tell you 99% garbage, but there might be that 1% that you had to, force your way through a couple hours listening to me talk. That 1% that could be a game changer to you, or that 1% that could add to the 1% somebody else gave you, yes. 1%, and then make that 10% that you're talking about that you're missing. And then all of a sudden, like, I was very fortunate in my bowling career in my early 20s where I bowled on a pro league on a team with Mike Bates. And You know, one of the best bowlers that our province has ever had, come out. And the opportunity, not necessarily having him talk to me specifically, but understand what his outlook was and how he thought the game was, so instrumental to me. He could have a conversation with somebody else that I wasn't even involved in, and I learned from it, and that's definitely I mean, if I could really kind of throw one tip out for somebody that is off lane, that would be it. Is don't be afraid to talk to people about, I have conversations with people all the time about, my mental aspects. And I mean, I could talk another 10 hours about my mental game and how I treat, my process, everything like that.
We will.
And you're going to find that I'm not like a special case. Everybody is like that. Like you said, you talked to Tom Patterson, like literally one of the best minds in the history of our game, reaching out to you. You know what I mean? Like, guy could be talking to 1,000 people right now about bowling, and every one of them's going to get better. But you've had that conversation with him where he's like, hey, let's work on some stuff. You're going to see that. And I'm not just talking to you specifically. I'm talking to anyone who might, be watching this and really just, if you see that really good bowler, like I said, I keep bringing it up. They don't have a special potion. There's something that they understand about their game that you might learn from, and you'll never learn unless you ask them. And I will talk to anybody who will talk to me, but I will not approach you. I will not say, hey, I need to tell you this is what you need to do.
Right.
Because one, you may be perfectly happy where you are. I mean, I've met people that are 150 average bowlers that are happy with being 150 average bowlers, So me telling them what they should change is not going to be helpful to them. You might not be ready to hear it, right? And I don't like to be imposing, and that's another thing too. Like, any really good bowler will kind of, I guess, shy away a bit on that kind of aspect because they don't want to be pushy, saying, hey, I'm smarter than you about this game, and I'm going to show you that I'm smarter than you about this game. And there's that fear of, like, especially when you're running a bowling center, like, telling somebody, hey, you should do this. Liz know it all, like, you're trying to teach me how to, trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yep.
Some people don't want to hear it, right? But if you do want to hear it, talk to people, send me a message, go look and see who, like, I'm kind of throwing them out here, to fight fires on their own. But, the Fipe and Universe podcast guys, they're into bowling.
Yeah.
They want to talk about, they talk about bowling every week. Yep. Ask them questions about bowling.
Yes.
And they will answer you. And if they don't, then they will probably be able to find you someone in your area that, hey, check this person out, or hey, I pass some this person a message, maybe they'll contact you. Like,
right.
I feel like if you never take the opportunity to try to make yourself, I mean, and that's anything in life, but if you don't try to make yourself better, at the game of bowling by asking questions or even listening to conversations, I don't, if I have a conversation with you in a bowling center, I am not upset if some random person standing right beside me listening to every word I'm saying, because I'm hoping maybe that they listen. You know what I mean?
I love that feeling that somebody's just sort of vaguely listening to us, and because that's first, that's good for them if that's what they're comfortable doing. If they're not comfortable, they'll come up and talk to us.
Yep.
And second, hey, we must be doing something right if somebody's going out of their way to listen to us. Then I guess we're not so full of shit.
Well, I mean, we might be, but we hide it well.
We're very good at what we do.
Yes,
Jeff.
You'll fake it till you make it.
Jeff, thank you so much for this. I guarantee you, I will be back. We will do this again, and we will have another 10 hours of conversation, and then 10 more and 10 more.
Yeah.
In the meantime, as Jeff says, if you know somebody that you look up to in the game and you want to ask for help, they're not necessarily going to be the person who's going to turn over 10 hours a week of their life to you, but they will help you in what way they can. They will help you find somebody who will be able to spend that time. And in the meantime, go ahead.
I was just saying, taking this actually even one kind of step further.
Even better. All right.
Why don't you pick up Tom Patterson's book?
Well, you know so two things. One, you should look for Tom Patterson's book when it comes out.
His previous book as well.
Some people that you might have heard of or might know about have written some contributions there. Not that I'm naming anyone in particular, both of us. And if you're interested in more content like this, please come over to the260bowler.ca. Follow my insane experiment as I try to figure out how to go from 237 to 260. And I just realized, by the way, that that's 10% better. Okay, I'll go to 261. Fine, but it's not quite the same round number. And please get involved in the discussion. I'm trying to build a community around 5-pin bowling, especially for the people who are trying to improve. Get involved in the discussions, talk to me, and if you have suggestions for topics, questions, any of that kind of stuff, that's going to help me figure out who I need to talk to next about what, before I come back to Jeff and find out more about his mad scientist approach to the mental game.
Speak some nonsense.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't even call it mad scientist. It's a robot.
Okay, well that's very interesting, because I have been getting more into meditation and sort of the Buddhist Stoic approach to things, and part of that has been all about calming down. So
I definitely haven't gotten there yet.
And so the robot mentality is that piques my interest.
Yeah,
we will get there. But in the meantime, once again, the 260bowler.ca, 5-pin universe. Thanks very much for your support, and we'll see you again.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Bobby Osborne, all the way from PEI.
I'm good.
Indeed, indeed.
Big strike for Bob Osborne there. Big strike for Bob Osborne there. He is